Our next speaker is Srushti Shah. Srushti is a Microsoft 365 Apps and Services MVP for this year and also two-time C Sharp Corner MVP. She is an author and speaker and she loves to contribute to the community. So I will welcome Srushti here. Hi, Srushti.
Hey, hi, Devang.
Hello,
Thank you
hi.
for a great welcome.
No problem. How are you, Srushti?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm fine too, thanks. It's a privilege for
Awesome.
us to have you here today. So, without any
It's
further
my
delay, I will
privilege to. Yeah.
thank you. So, without any further delay, I will hand it over to you. Let's get started.
Sure, sure.
Okay,
Just
thank
give
you.
me a moment. I'll pull up my screen.
Sure.
Let me know once you all can see it.
Yes, we can see.
Yeah. So firstly, before I jump to the slides, I would like to say that this presentation, which was created, or the template, had a huge effort, and I loved the presentation slide. I was planning to create my own presentation template, which I usually do, but the slides which were created were really so awesome that I just had to create my content on top of this. So really great work by the whole team. And definitely thanks India Dynamics 365 and Power Community User Group. I'm speaking for this community for the first time, wherein I have been taking sessions for the past more than 2 years, and I just never gave a session on this platform. So I feel privileged today to conduct this session. So let's just start, and thank you all attendees for taking out your time and just joining me at a weekend and sparing 1 hour. So I would make sure that I won't bore you guys, and I will make sure that the content is really helpful for you, so that you can go ahead and you will find it interesting, so that you can try out yourself and you would want to try out more scenarios based on Power Automate. So today's session is majorly on top of integration of planner with Power Automate. So I would just like to give a small overview about how this session, like how this topic came to my mind, and how I just connected the dots, and how this automation flow helps. So basically, you might have, many of us, those who work on Power Automate, and even the ones who haven't, who don't have more development knowledge. So they are like just trying the hands on. Probably they are from the business side, or they are the functional users, and they are not a pro kind of developers. So many a times what happens is they just come, they utilize Power Platform, they mostly utilize it for approvals or some Office 365 integrations. But there are very few integrations wherein you will find something with Planner or something with Yammer. These two services are very niche, wherein like you would have seen people working with teams, working with groups, and other Microsoft 365 apps which they provide. But Planner is very new, and like Planner is very niche because Planner doesn't provide APIs, and there are no more connectors. When I talk about in terms of Power Platform, there are no widely available connectors like Create Planner or some like do something with tasks or bucket in Planner. You can't automate that. For that, you have to use APIs of Planner itself or Graph APIs to do that. So that is why you would not find much topics around Planner. So this is wherein I put forward this whole scenario, and I also have written a detailed blog about it. It is not about Planner, but it is about something similar, adding as a tab. So I'll just go through today's agenda, and probably we'll look at this whole scenario end to end right inside, the Power Automate. So let's just jump into, before I just start into the agenda, I'll just give you a short introduction about me, even though I have put it multiple lines, which I shouldn't have done that, but yeah, apologies. So yeah, I am a Microsoft 365 consultant, and I also work on cloud, just majorly infrastructure as a code, like PowerShell scripting or Bicep templates or ARM templates creation, and automation and provisioning in Azure, something like that, along with authentication and logic apps and other services. Apart from that, as Devang already mentioned, I am in Microsoft MVP. I got awarded at the start of this year, which is in January, and I also am C Sharp Corner MVP, which is the 2 times I've got it. I keep on writing my blogs and I keep on speaking at various forums. So that is, yeah, short introduction about me. In terms of work, I majorly work on M365 stack, whether it is Teams, app development, or Power Platform, Canvas app solutions, or assets we create, or Azure. So this is whole in all Microsoft technology stack which I work on. So yeah, I'll just jump to the agenda. So today's agenda I've divided into three, kind of sections. One is we'll understand what exactly are tabs in Teams so that we get an idea or the audience get an idea that what is a tab, how is the layout look like, and what we are trying to achieve at the end of this automation. So we'll go through what is a tab in Team, and then while we add planner as a tab, you will be understanding that okay, this is a planner, this is added as a tab in my team. So that is the end goal for you all. And apart from that, I mentioned about working with APIs. So whenever we work with APIs, definitely the authentication is the first thing which comes to our mind. And authentication is in terms of OAuth authentication, which requires tokens. So definitely I'm going to use that same strategy. I'll follow that same thing. For an API, I am fetching OAuth token, which will be used by the Planner API to create a planner. And along with that, I'm also using a Graph API to post a tab in Team. That is another API which Microsoft provides. One is Create Planner API, and another is Post Tab API. And yeah, we will take out all those steps, like all this prerequisites component, and we'll build a flow together. So this is the today's plan and agenda. Okay, so I talked about Planner, I talked about Power Automate Graph API. So that is what I've noted down here. What all apps and services I'm going to talk about and are used for this particular end-to-end scenario. One is Tabs, which is called as an app in Teams. Another is Planner. So for those who have not yet used Planner or those who have heard about it but did not work on it, so you don't have to worry that, okay, I don't know what Planner is and how it is used. But each and every person in some or the other context, they would have heard the word planner, which helps you organize things, right? It is just like your notepad wherein you take some notes. Planner is something which helps you, organize your day, a week, or it helps you, assign tasks, or you can just assign deadlines or dates. You can keep a track of whole thing right inside your planner. So it is just kind of a planning, more elaborative planning along with collaboration, and it gives you visual intelligence wherein you can just see, okay, this falls in this bucket, this is how my day looks like, my work week looks like, something like that. Apart from that, I mentioned about APIs which we are going to use. So those are the graph APIs. One is Create Planner Graph API, and other one is Post Tab in Teams Graph API. So these two APIs I'm going to consume inside my Power Automate flow. And definitely nothing is possible, this whole automation would have been possible without using that Power Automate. So that is building the whole dots. And demo, definitely that is going to, this whole session is going to be a demo, and I don't have any more slides. I always try to keep my slides very concise so that I don't bore any of you. When I talk about we are going to build a Power Automate flow, so this process wherein I elaborated that, okay, I want to create a planner, and this planner will be a fresh new planner and not an existing planner. So let me just elaborate more about the scenario. Let's say there is a use case wherein you are automating or wherein you are creating multiple teams. Okay, so for example, in an education, okay, there might be a school wherein for that school you might have to create teams specific to each division or each category, let's say science, history, or each class, probably the first grade class or second grade class or something like that. So in this particular scenario wherein we see that, okay, yeah, we need an automation so that for the whole school or for any scenario, let's say for not just a school but any healthcare organization or any technical organization or operations, we can have multiple teams created. But not just teams, what if I want different flexibilities or apps as well right inside my teams? Let's say for each team I want a planner created for that particular class for this week. So I always will want to have new planner and not an existing one, because maybe that existing planner are for the previous years, or not relevant right now, or those are redundant. For new team I will need new planner, and that is when this scenario comes up. So what I am doing is I am pulling up a team data and creating a new planner on top of that team and adding it as a tab. So this is where this scenario fits into that whole picture. And I have not yet, I have not, broadcast or pictured this whole scenario into the demo, that I'm not creating or automating multiple teams creation, because that is very simple and you can do it within 3 or 4 steps itself. So we are just talking about how you can create a new planner and add it to your existing teams right now. But you can definitely create a new team, create a new planner, and add it to the team as well. That is what we are going to do today. So quickly, I'll elaborate the workflow steps. Firstly, because definitely we are using Graph API, we need uh, authentication, Azure AD, client ID, client secret we are going to use. That so that definitely I'll have to register an app. Once my app registration is done, I am fetching team details, and then I am using a Graph API to fetch access token. This access token is needed for for the Graph API of Planner, wherein Planner will be created on top of using that access token. Once that is done, I am using post tab Teams Graph API, which will leverage Azure app registration, and then this is how, using this API, my tab, which is a newly created planner, will be added to that team. And this is like right now very vanilla. Like you will say how my tab got added, how my planner got added. But we'll see there are different body items in terms of parameters in the Graph API, wherein you'll have to add content URL. So we'll talk about that later. So I hope this is clear till right now, and I'll move further. So API right now, which I'm using for authentication, is this Microsoft Authentication Graph API to fetch, Microsoft Authentication API to fetch token. So this is our OAuth token fetching API, which I think everyone must be aware of. But those who aren't, I have noted this down. This is just endpoint wherein you have to pass some body parameters. So this is just a kind of, when you use an API, you authenticate using client ID, client secret, and tenant IDs. So something similar, this is what we are doing is we are fetching a token so that we can use a token instead of adding those client ID, client secret. So this is client ID, client secret, resource, grant type, username and password. So for this authentication token, which I'm fetching right now, I'm using username and password along with these all body parameters. These client ID, client secret and resource will always be, because I'm authenticating graph. So I'll add a graph resource here. In client ID, I'll add that app registered client ID, which I'll fetch. Client secret, something similar. Grant type, as I mentioned, password, hence I'm using username and password. So this is how we'll fetch token. Now, I think I've talked a lot. So let's just go and see into the action what I'm talking about. So before I come to the flow and we talk about it in more detail, what I'll do is, as I mentioned the flow steps, we'll go exactly in the similar manner. So if you can see here that I have created an app, okay? Why I've created an app? Because I want authentication details like client ID, client secret, and URL resource is definitely graph.microsoft.com. That is not needed from app registration. But apart from these, what we are doing is, let's say I'm consuming an API which is going to create a planner for me. But to consume that API, I have that client ID, client secret, using which it will consume, right? That using that data, it will create a planner. But apart from that, definitely I need to add permission so that, okay, this API understands that, okay, I have the permission to go ahead and create a planner in my tenant. Hence, we also have to configure API permissions. So let me just duplicate the tab, and I'll go to Azure Active Directory. How you can create app registrations. For those who aren't aware, I'm just revising for them. So whenever you go to your Azure portal, if you don't have, you can have the trial one as well. But for that, you'll have to add your card details. So make sure that you add your card details. If someone is a student, then they don't need to add the debit card or credit card details. But yeah, if someone is non-student or an employee professional, they have to add to provision or procure Azure portal. So once I come to my Azure portal, you will have to go to Azure Active Directory. Once you come to Azure Active Directory, you have to go to app registrations and then click on new registration to create a new app registration. So whenever you go ahead and create a new app registration, you will firstly definitely you'll have to add the name for your app. Okay, something like this. Once this is done, it asks you what type of support, like what type of accounts you are planning to support. So here you will see a radio button, which is like select any one of them, wherein single tenant, multi-tenant, and multi-tenant with personal Microsoft account, such options. So when we talk about single tenant, it means that only these tenant people, though tenant means the ones who are residing under, or the users, user ID who are residing under M365, this domain, will only be able to use this app registration. Accounts, that is what it is mentioning, accounts in this organization directory only will be able to use this. If you select multi-tenant, then this app registered app can be used for multiple tenants as well. This is the difference between a single tenant and a multi-tenant. Ideally, it is better to have single tenant unless you have some B2, other B2B or different scenarios, B2B or B2C, wherein your tenant is associated, with some other tenants as well. And then you can have your one app registered and you can utilize it elsewhere. So I am going to use now single tenant for the demo, and I'll just click on register. Once I do this, I have my app registered, and as you can see, I get the details like application ID, which is a client ID, tenant ID, and if you go to certificates and secrets, you are supposed to create a secret for this particular app. When I create a new client secret, I can just give a description saying planner API. I'm going to use this to consume Planner API. So I'll just write the description so that later on I don't forget where I use this secret for. And I suppose in the previous session, you would have seen this client secret window as well. And he mentioned that Amit mentioned that you can create your certificates for so and so or some time period. So right now you can create maximum for 24 months from this drop down, but definitely you can have your custom start and end date as well. So you have to keep a track. Right now, once the certificate expires, you might not know, or any notification is not sent from Azure to you that okay, your secret is expiring, that you have to keep a track of. You have to just create a reminder in your Outlook or anywhere like planner or tasks somewhere, so that you might know that okay, my secret is about to expire within so and so days. So this is how you create a secret. And once you create a secret, you have to grab the value. I'm not creating right now. I already have my app ready. Once you create a secret, you can grab the value, note it down somewhere in the key vault or in any password manager of your choice. You can do that. Don't ideally, if you're just doing it for POC or demo purpose, it is fine to keep it handy on Notepad or OneNote. But if it is a business scenario which you're working on, then it is not recommended to keep your passwords or secrets open on Notepad or such files. So it is better to use Key Vault or any other password manager. So once your secret is ready, now let's just go to the app registration. Okay, and let me come here. Once I have the details like certificate, client ID, tenant ID, now the important step is API permissions. Now you would say, I have added few permissions. How would I know that, okay, I have to add these APIs only or these permissions only for my planner API? So for this, you have to refer documentation, API documentation. When you go and read the documentation of create planner, new planner plan, then you will understand that, okay, it expects few permissions which you have to create or get the permissions for. So from that Microsoft documentation, I got to know that for creating a new planner, I will need group.readwrite.all and task.readwrite permission to be granted for my API so that it can create a new planner. Let's just go and see how you can do that. Add a permission, and there are two different types of permission. One is application and another is delegated. Because we are working with teams and teams take the user's context, so for each user, this is going to have that user context. Teams is user based, right? Something similar to Power Apps. For each app, that user is going to run that app and it will capture that user's detail. Something similar with teams is a user based, it takes the user's context, so it will need delegated permissions. And application permission is with respect to yeah, you can use that application, and that application might be able to give the permission to perform such action. So these are the two difference between delegated and application. Now I'll go to API permission, and in Microsoft Graph, I'll see these two options, delegated and application permission. I'll go to delegated permissions and I'll select those two permissions which were, or you can go to the documentation and pick out. I'll just add group and you will see all the group permissions here. I will need group read write dot all. I'll select that. And the other one is tasks. So if you would if someone is aware, then planner was previously tasks and then it got merged to planner. So that is why we are using task dot read write right now. So if you observe, the permission is tasks and not planner. You might have that question that why I'm not using planner API or why tasks. So behind the scenes, task is kind of planner only, and it also gives a description that you can create, read, update, and delete all the users tasks and task lists. Okay, so let me just select here. So once I'm done adding that permissions, now what I can do is, because I have added delegated permission, then I might not need to, grant that admin consent. But if it would have been application permission, then definitely I would need admin consent as well. Okay. So I did not have to, do selection right from here and grant admin consent. Now let me just go back to the demo. So our workflow was, what we have is, we had to create an app registered, which we right now did. I hope you all followed. What I did is, you have to create an app registration, and you have to make a note of client ID, tenant ID, certificate, and you have to add few API permissions, which we are done. Now the next step is, what API I'm going to consume to create planner. So let's just go to our, this thing. And yeah, I am not going one step by step, because I'll come to the whole flow later once I finish all the concepts of planner and everything. So now, as I talked about that, I am going to create, what we did is we created an app registration, right? And I am going to use that app registration. Now, if you see here that I am using a Graph API for creating a planner, right? So once I have the planner, I have this API, which is this very straightforward API, Graph API with the version endpoint, planner/plans. Now what it demands is, because we are creating, that is post action taken, not we are fetching, we are not fetching any details. So we are writing a post call. Post call comes with body, right? So we have to pass few details for the planner to understand what action or what inputs I have to give. So definitely one thing will be planner name, title, which you can see is a planner name, and who is the owner of that planner. Okay. Now, if you would have observed, this post API also needs an access token. And if I just scroll here, I have an authentication field and I have added authentication as none, and I'm adding your authorization access token. So there are two things here. When you write an API or an HTTP trigger, if you are passing the token, then you do not need to add any authentication. Why? Because this token was fetched already by consuming that whole data, which is client ID, client secret, which I have done above. I'll come to that later. But if you are not using an access token, then what happens is you have to give your Azure Active Directory OAuth, which means this is going to do the same thing which I have already done here. I am fetching that token and I'm passing here. If not, then I'll give the details. I'll say authentication should be done by Azure Active Directory OAuth, wherein I'll give that whole details which I've given here in this body, and it will fetch a token for me and it will consume, like it will be authenticated. So these are the two things you can work either of the two way. You can give token and no authentication is needed, or else you can remove this authorization and just add content type as application slash JSON, because you will need your content in a JSON format. And then you can add the authentication as Azure AD OAuth. Either of the two is perfectly fine. Now, what I have done is I have used using authorization access token, and the other API, if you see here, I am using Azure Active Directory OAuth. Just for your understanding, what difference does it make? And you can use both of them. Same HTTP trigger, but handled in different ways. Just that is why I've used this way. Now, this access token, you will say that how should I fetch this access token? For that, I mentioned in the previous slide, that definitely you will have to give this detail, this endpoint, which will again be a post, because I am getting the detail. I will be able to, I want the token from this endpoint. This is a Microsoft Online authorization endpoint, wherein I am giving the data in the body, like client ID, client secret, which we would have saved already, resource, graph resource, because how I'm going to consume this token, that resource, grant type, password, and that is why username and password. So just because I was sharing my screen, so I removed the password for this user, but I'll add it once I go to the demo. So this is how my API, first API looks like, wherein I'll fetch the token. Now, once this flow runs, you will get a JSON body. Once that JSON body, I fetch that. And then, what I can do is I can keep that body output, and I will add it in the sample so that I can pick out my token from parse JSON. That is what I'm doing. I'm parsing the JSON, adding that JSON sample JSON here, and the body is this body of the HTTP. And then I am just getting the access token, adding it in the compose so that I can use it later on. Or else if I remove this, I could have directly used the access token itself. Right now, this access token is coming from this compose. So this is how I am fetching the access token. So I hope till planner. So let me just go back a few steps. Okay. So my intention was to make you all aware of how you can use Planner API with different authentication using HTTP trigger. So basically, I think Planner is the Planner plan is concerned. You have now authenticated and you are now ready to consume and create a new planner. If I use this API, I will be ready to create a new planner. But where is my teams and how I will integrate these two things? Okay, when that is concerned, now let's talk about this flow which I'm talking about in detail. So what I have done is, for this scenario, I'm manually triggering a flow right now. You can take inputs from this manual trigger as well. Like you can have your planner name from input, or any other things, team name, or if you're creating it at a more wider scale, you can have a Power App screen wherein you can ask user to give me the team name details or team description with the member, owner, and planner name, so that you can create teams also, like automate teams along with planner, which will be added to your or each team whenever it is created. So you can do something like this, or if you are just seeing this scenario, then we can take planner name as an input as well for the scheduled flow. Otherwise, in the automation scenario, manual is not needed. Like this will only work for once. But where we are talking about automation scenario, so definitely you will have some UI from where the automation will happen at a large scale. So what I have done is I have saved each details, like instead of saving it to a notepad, just for the demo purpose, I have initialized a variable. I have saved my tenant ID, picked it from this registered app. This is a tenant ID. I grabbed it from here and I saved it in the form of string, because this is a string. And client ID, I have again initialized a variable, which is a string kind of variable, and stored the value. Another thing is client secret. It shouldn't be populated like this. You can use key vault. As I mentioned, key vault integration is definitely possible. You can go ahead and use that. But just to keep it simple, right, for this scenario or today's demo, I have kept it as an initialized variable and not inside a key vault. But it is highly recommended to use key vault and not have your exposed secrets here. So I have added secret as well, client ID and tenant ID. All those things which I need are initialized. Now, our scenario was I will fetch a team. Inside the team, I will fetch all the lists. I will list all my channels, and only for concerned, let's say general channel. I have a team which I created, and it only has general channel, and I want that each section of students should see all that tabs for only general channels, while they can go ahead and create their own public and private channels as per the permissions they have. So for that use case, when you have team with general channel, so what I've done is I'm getting that team, I'm getting the list, I'm getting the channels for those team, and inside the general channel or any other channel you can have, I am creating a new planner and adding it as a tab. So I have my channel, I have my team. Now I have already created a token which we talked about. using, this Microsoft OAuth API. And I fetched the access token. I have passed that access token to the planner graph API, and I'm using that token for authentication. And in the planner, I also have added the title for planner, and the owner, who will be the owner for my this planner. Definitely my team will be the owner. So which team? The team which I'm fetching the details of. Now here comes the interesting stuff. What I'm doing is, everything is done. The only one step which is left is integrating teams with the planner which I have created. So this is the graph API which Microsoft provides to integrate your tabs or add tabs to your teams. What we are doing is, if you read the endpoint clearly, then this is just a graph endpoint with version. And it is saying that, okay, I have to go to a team. This is kind of a navigation where I am posting that tab. In teams, which team I'm going to. That is why we fetched that team detail so that I can get the team ID. In channel, which channel I want to add my tab to. Because if you go and if you just see this team, let's say, I'll have to go to this teams. So teams basically is a combination of channels, if you know, right? You can't add tabs directly to teams. That is not possible. So any team you take here, it is a combination of channels. How much ever channels I can have. I created some. Yeah. So I can create n number of channels here, but just a team is nothing, correct? It always redirects to general channel. So if in this scenario, you see that this is the general channel and this is the team which I created for the demo. And all these, this plus button, files, task list, these all are tabs. When we talk about tab, I'll just come to this later, but I just wanted to explain you the scenario that how the tab is getting added, okay, as per our flow. So right now, if you can visualize it more correctly, that we are into a team. I am into one team. This is this team. Inside the team, I fetch that team ID because I want to grab this team only and not the other team. And inside this, I am fetching the whole channels of this particular team so that I can add tabs specific to each channel. So right now, I have added it to the general channel of this team. So there's something similar. I've done this team ID, channel ID, and tabs because I'm adding tab. Now, this endpoint looks very straightforward, but if you look at the body, it is a bit different and it needs some understanding. So if you look at each property of the body, it says a display name. So because we are adding the tab, right, which is kind of an app inside the teams. So display name will be the name with which you see in your tab. So right now you see task list. This display name I have given in my body. Teams app or data bind. Now this is like what exactly you are adding tab as. So let's say if I come to my, this team, I have plenty of options to add. Some are like OneNote, some can be website, some can be Power Apps. Power Apps definitely is a website itself because it has a configuration URL. Some other files can be different type of task files, forms, planner, Power BI, or any kind of all these kind of options are my tabs. But which specific type of tab I want to add, that I will have to give the details correct. So this is what Teams Data App or Data Bind expects. What this expects
Sorry
is,
for interruption, Srishti. I think just 5 minutes are left for the session.
yeah, sure. Will it be fine if I take 5 more minutes? I think I'll be done by then.
That would be okay.
Yeah. Okay. So if you observe here that what I have added in Teams Data OBind is, this is a graph endpoint. And if you see that this is in beta right now, okay, and these beta endpoint with the Teams app and slash com.microsoft.teams space dot tab dot planner. And these thing is called its ID, content ID. I'll quickly come to, this how you can fetch this data. I have the documentation already open. So if you, for whenever you're configuring tabs right inside your teams using Graph API, so this documentation is very helpful. What it gives you is, it gives you the, like for, let's say I want to add website as a tab, any endpoint, you have endpoint, you want to add it as a tab. Then what Teams app ID will need? This is what I was pointing out to Teams app ID. And let's say for planner, search for planner. You see, this is a Teams app ID, which I have added into my body. So this is how I will, this is what I've added. This is Teams app ID, which I will require because it helps you differentiate what kind of application you are adding it as a tab. Now, once this API got to know that, okay, this will be my app name and planner will be going to be my app. Now, other configurations are like entity ID and content URL. Entity ID can be empty, it is not required, but content URL is where your whole content of the tab resides. So for content URL, in wherein we are creating a new planner, so what I have done is I've added the content URL of a planner with the new plan ID, because every time I'm creating a new planner, so that ID will be my plan ID and this will be my content URL, which it is very difficult to fetch this, but I have managed to create this, and if I've documented this as well, we can share that later. So this is the content URL which is creating a new planner every time with this ID, because I have new planner ID from my this call HTTP this thing. So if I hover over this, you will be able to see the body of HTTP ID, and this is the HTTP ID. Okay. This will have respond me within body, and it will have the ID, which is a planner ID, which it will use and it will attach it to. So this is very simple, but it is very easy, not very easy to understand that how you will create that endpoint for planner. So this is a bit tricky when it comes to planner. While for the rest of the other type of, different apps like forms or website URL, it will be very easy for you to add. You just have to add the content URL. Either it can be a document library, something like this, or if you are planning to add a website, then nothing better than that. You just have to add the website URL as a content URL. So there are different type of tabs which you can create, not just planner, but forms, documents, OneNote, and libraries, and different type of sites or Power Apps as well. Because some of those requires only URL, while rest might need document as well, which you would attach it to. So for documents as well, you will have to attach the proper document which you are attaching. You can't create a new. You can just use existing one. If you would have observed in this particular scenario, you're configuring a Word tab. Inside the Word tab, they are pointing to a particular document file, and they are not creating a new every time when a team is created. So this is a bit tricky here, and this trickiness is this I faced while creating a planner as well. But yeah, I managed to create a new planner. Now I think I've talked a lot. Let's just see this in action, and I'll quickly put in the password. Just studying it. Save. And I'll quickly test so that you all can visualize better. I hope demo gods are with me. So if let's see the authentication token and authorization happen successfully. Yeah. So now what has happened is I have not given any team name or anything. I'm just fetching a detail. So which team detail I'm fetching right now is this team detail. So already you would have seen that I had added the task list, but it should add another task list to my team. So this is my team, and in the general channel, I'm trying to fetch this. So if you see, there are two task lists now, and this one task list I created for demo already, and this is a new planner, and what you can do is you can add a new bucket to it, and you can visualize it in a chart or schedule format. And if you want to add more bucket, let's say we go to the boards and we can add new buckets, and for each bucket, let's say sprint 1, sprint 2, or if you are meeting in agile team in planner or release planner, something like that, then you can do that definitely. Now this planner is already will be part of our main planner as well. To answer that question, I will say yes. I'll directly go to my planner and we'll see that quickly. So what happens is if someone, so the beautiful part about this planner, new planner creation, is only the team member who are part of this team will be able to access this planner. Rest they won't, because right now I am a part of this team. So I'll be able to, you see this new, and new planner task board was a name which I gave in my planner API while creating a plan. That is why I'm seeing that. And this is linked, and how it is linked, it will show me as well. So this is linked to this team in the general channel, and you can go to that as well. So this is how beautiful integration works, wherein automation with integration is always a great to have kind of thing. And the same thing, same tasks, planner, buckets, everything remains the same. And even for the another, which I just now created, might take just a moment to reload. Yeah. So now, yes. Let's assign to. So you can see I can create tasks. And now if I go to the planner again, and let me just go to my home page up, and I should have another task board. Right now I have added with the same name. So it is a bit confusing because I was demoing it with the same name always. But I think it should have another as well. Where is the other one? Yeah, this here it is. So you can see another task list right inside one team. I have two different planners created. Both are working different at different aspect and different for different things. So I hope I covered the end-to-end scenario very well. And if you want to refer this documentation, I have very well documented this whole process of how you can add and configure your tabs into your teams with a forms scenario. But the planner one is right now under, it is in my notepad and it is not yet published. So once I'll do that, you probably can go ahead and read it at my website. Before I forget, I will just like to thank you all for listening it very carefully and very patiently, and also the organizers and the whole team behind. So thank you so much. And if you have any questions, I can take that up, or probably if I'm running out of time, then I can take that up on chat.
Wow, Srishti, what a great session. Uh, Indeed, it was a very good session. Loved the way you explained all the details of it, the way you explained it, referring to word by word of the API URL and even the JSON, and is truly recommendable and appreciable. I'm definitely not sure about others, but surely I'll try to use it in my planning activities in my projects going forward.
Awesome. That was the intention for this whole session. I would be
I know
privileged if.
I actually saw the enthusiasm in your voice and in how you explained it detail by just referring to docs and then moving on back to the flow and changing the screens. And you wanted to give the clear picture. And maybe that's the reason why I don't see any questions on the chat.
Or else people might have not understood at all.
No, no, for sure. They have understood. I'm sure about this.
Awesome, awesome.
And what I can
Thank
say
you so
is
much.
keep contributing to community through blogs and sessions as you always do. It was really an honor for us to have you as a speaker for the Global Power Platform Bootcamp Mumbai edition. And looking forward to see you soon and to hear from you again in future.
Thank you so much. Likewise, have a good day.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Shashti.